I just knew that there was something that I was born to do, and that creativity was part of it. 27 years after birth, I realized that that call was from this Creator God who gave us the Bible.
Renowned artist Makoto Fujimura joins us today on First Person. Welcome, everyone. I'm Wayne Shepherd. Our guest lives and works in New York City. Makoto is an artist, writer, and speaker who's recognized worldwide as a cultural influencer by both faith-based and secular media. His original artwork was recently published in the Four Holy Gospels, an exquisitely designed edition of the four canonical Gospels in the English Standard Version by Crossway, commemorating the 400th anniversary of the King James Bible. We'll begin talking with Makoto in just a moment, but first, especially if you're a new listener to First Person, welcome to our weekly program featuring the life stories of people who've been called of God to serve Him. You can find these interviews archived online at firstpersoninterview.com. There's also a calendar there at firstpersoninterview.com. Makoto Fujimura excels at what he does and gives all the credit to the work of God in his life. His quiet but powerful witness to the world is remarkable and reaches far into an art culture with the simple message of the gospel. As we started the conversation, I asked Makoto how he responds when people ask him what he does in life.
It's really a funny problem that I have, when I'm sitting next to somebody in the airplane and they ask me, what do you do? I have to say I'm an artist, and they say, really?
Does that promote conversation or shut it down?
It usually leads to explaining what is it that I do, and you can certainly understand if I say I paint, or maybe illustration would be much easier than what I do in the contemporary art. The assumption is, there's automatic suspicion, like
you're one of those.
You're one of those people, you paint things that my kids can do and put it up on museums and, have this big ego. And so I kind of have to anticipate all these questions that I try to say, in a way that would explain what I do to people, it's such a privilege to be able to work every day creating something and to follow your passion. And I'm one of the few, I think, in the world that can say that. And so I am grateful for the opportunity to talk about it, but it does take a few minutes to explain what I do.
Yeah. I know how fundamental your faith is. Really, your faith comes before your art, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. And also, in some ways, art preceded the faith that I have now, and yet it goes together. I could sense God's presence whenever I was creating something. I just didn't know what to call that. And it wasn't until I was in my late 20s that I realized that was this Creator God that gave us the Bible. But I'm always aware in the creative process, in the tension of that, there is a starting point that originates out of time and space, and it's this mystery that I cannot even come close to, and yet through the creative process, you're asking questions about who you are, the nature of reality, what it means to live today, how shall we then live, and so artists are always delving into sometimes difficult questions that really have no straight answers to, but we are compelled to create objects or write songs that in some ways articulates, I think, what all of us are feeling and are looking for.
It's very interesting because I'm hearing that the very act of creativity leads you to questions which led you to faith.
Yes. Yes.
Is that still happening as you create today? It's still leading you deeper and deeper?
Absolutely. And it's like diving into this deep ocean, and you realize, no matter how deep you go, it gets deeper. And it's this mystery of discovery. And so therefore, I think art is fundamentally necessary for faith. And I'm not talking about the superficial decorative aspects of it. I'm talking about the questioning. And those creative types are always able to tap into something that we can't really articulate yet, but everybody feels is there. And that's why when we hear songs or when we see works of art that resonate with us, we are like, yeah, that's how I felt, or that's what I have been feeling. These are the questions I have been asking all along. I just didn't have words. I just didn't have images or song to sing. And so that's the gift of a creative person.
Tell me about the home that you grew up in, and when did you encounter Christ as the answer?
Right. I grew up in an agnostic house. My father is a well-known scientist, and my mother is an educator. So I grew up in this very creative environment where they affirmed my creativity to such an extent that I didn't know that, that was not normal until I went to middle school, and found out that not everybody.
It's the great leveler, isn't it? Middle school.
Yes. And you come home and you realize, wow, I get to have space and time for doing all this creative work, which was always assumed in my home, but it's not true out there. So it took me a while. I went to undergraduate college in Pennsylvania, and that's where I met my wife. And so I began this journey through literature and sciences and the arts. I was exploring these questions, and in fact, my first exposure to the Bible was a King James Bible, which I had to read because of Shakespeare, Milton, and William Blake. And
we'll come full circle to that in a few minutes, by the way.
That's right. Yeah, no, it really is significant for me. And so I really didn't understand half of it. I was like, okay, the language is beautiful, but what is it? Right. What is this guy Jesus saying about? Was there someone that came into your life that helped you then? Well, absolutely. My wife had a deep spiritual side, and she introduced me to all these people. When we went to Japan, I received this national governmental scholarship to study there for 6.5 years to master this technique of Nihonga, which is this 1,000-year tradition of using pulverized minerals and gold and paper and so forth. My wife began to attend this interdenominational church, and I went with her at some points and heard the gospel there. And it really didn't connect until I went back to what I was reading in college days, Milton, Shakespeare, and William Blake, and all of a sudden it sunk in that this God that they spoke of and they knew, this person of Jesus Christ, was so consistent. The message is so consistent throughout history. And meanwhile, at the same time, I'm studying Buddhistic texts and scrolls. I'm copying them to master the techniques of these artworks from 15th century, and I can see in front of me the syncretic nature of all religions, Shinto, Buddhist, that Christianity didn't share. Christianity had this absolute consistency. So it was radically different. It was radically different. And that attracted you? I was struck by it, and they kept on telling me, well, have you really looked at Jesus? Have you really considered him? And I'm like, sure, I know who he is, but really, I didn't know. So I kind of went back to reading these books that of poets that I respected. They were artists, like me, who questioned deeply about nature, reality, and doubt was part of their faith. They went through ups and downs, and yet at the end, especially William Blake, landed on this orthodoxy. And I felt when I went through that process, I had a kind of a guide into faith. And if this Jesus so consistent throughout history, how he defined love as the sacrifice that I would not know unless somebody died for me, that kind of sacrifice, then I wanted to be part of that. I wanted to know that love, because, as I said, creativity leads to these deeper questions. And actually, I was making these beautiful objects, paintings, using these amazingly extravagant materials. And I could not understand or justify this beauty that I was making because I knew in my heart that I didn't deserve it. There was this just tension and dissonance every time there's this one time I was painting. I had just completed this fairly large landscape, and an assistant professor just walked in and announced, and he took a look at my painting that I was working on. He said, this is so beautiful that it's almost fearsome. It's almost scary, and walked out. And so what I did was to wash the painting down, destroy it.
Really?
Yeah. I just could not accept that praise. I was in a place where, to be honest with myself, and with the ideologies of our days, where aesthetics, you go to art schools or you go to study art, and the critical dialogue today is that their beauty is to be, distrusted. There is, if there's goodness or truth involved, it is suspect. And irony and shock is the only way to approach today's dialogue. So I was in that camp. So to hear my professor tell me I was creating something beautiful,
it raised questions you didn't want to answer.
No, I did not want to go there, and so I destroyed the painting, and that was kind of a beginning of this journey.
We'll learn more about this talented artist Makoto Fujimura coming up on the second half of today's First Person. Next week, you'll meet a woman who prayerfully decided to have her children, even though it meant blindness for her.
See, I don't bring to the world some kind of scripted message. It's about a life message. And really think about the believer. Everyone was once in a kingdom of darkness, and now we've stepped out into a kingdom of light.
You'll meet a remarkable woman, Gail McWilliams, when you join us next week at this time for First Person. When Makoto Fujimura joined me in the studio, we continued talking, and I asked him when he first made the connection between his faith and his art.
I was reading a poem by William Blake. I had been attending this church that my wife was involved in, and I was beginning to see the consistency of the message, the gospel. And I decided that if that love that Jesus was offering was true, there's nothing more that I want. Now, I didn't realize that's when I became a Christian,
But looking back.
Yeah, it took a year, of really people asking me questions. But at that moment, I knew that my life was completely changed. I knew that the direction, the questions were changing, and therefore my art was changing. Everything was new,
You had a new purpose?
New purpose, new direction. I wanted to let everybody know that this is what I found, and this reality of Jesus 2,000 years ago was so significant and powerfully present at that moment. There was nothing I can do but to speak of him, every day, and people probably thought I was, nuts. And and then the other side of it is I go to my church, and really nobody understood what I did as an artist. Sure. So I was double exiled.
You were a man without a country.
No, absolutely not. And I felt really alone and isolated. And I had my wife, but she was praying for me, but she didn't know what kind of follower of Christ I would become, and I am kind of this all or nothing kind of guy. So once I decide on something, I am 100% there. And so every day I would be immersed in reading the Bible and going to all these meetings, and so I knew my life has changed. Now I didn't know what to do with my expression. I don't know what that was going to become. Would I become a missionary? And I was open to all that at the time, but eventually it dawned on me that I had this prestigious national scholarship that only very few people in the world is selected to, and I was in this lineage program that spans back 1,000 years. And I was selected, the first outsider of the university, let alone first foreigner, to be part of this. Only 2 people get selected each year, and I was one of those people.
So God entrusted that with you, for a reason.
That's right, and it didn't, I guess, take me long to realize God has intentionally done this. That He had this plan way ahead of my understanding, that He would bring me back to Japan to become a follower of Christ, and that I would be immersed in this technique, that had I planned it for myself, I would not have chosen, and yet.
I love to hear your story of coming to Christ. Talk more about this technique, this specialized training you received, and you are one of the world's leading artists using this now, right?
That's right, and it's called Nihonga, and it's an interesting problem that Nihonga has. It's a traditional 1,000-year tradition, but now with all that's happening with pollution and so-called advancement of cities and so forth, we're losing a lot of the tradition, and so it's in a sense disappearing world of painting, but you're using minerals and gold and silver and onto paper. It's actually a collaboration with nature and craftsmen, and goes way back. The glue you use is this Japanese hide glue that has been refined over time, and just everything. It's slow art.
Well, this is one of those times when you literally have to see it to believe it.
Yes.
And I think the best we're going to do is put links to your website on our firstpersoninterview.com website, where listeners can go and view some of this tremendous art and God-inspired art that you do. But it's also come together very recently. Now, you mentioned earlier the King James Version of the Bible was the first Bible that you read.
Right.
This happens to be the 400th anniversary of the King James 1611 Bible. And that has led Crossway and you to come together, Crossway Publishers, in a very special project that you opened up for me a few minutes ago here in the studio, and it blows my mind what you've done. Describe the project for me.
Crossway Publishing publishes the ESV version, and ESV is as far as lineage is concerned, it comes straight from the King James Bible. So for the 400th anniversary, they chose me as the artist to be commissioned to illumine the four Gospels. So I have been working on this for the last year and a half.
It's called the Four Holy Gospels Bible.
Four Holy Gospels,
it's
right?
Oversized. It's very large.
Yes.
The printing is just
extraordinary.
Oh, it is. It remarkable.
They came to me saying that we will, spare no expenses to do it. We want to do the best possible printing that can be done. And of course, I get suspicious when people say that, but they really meant it. And so each time I will get the proof done, and the process is excruciatingly complex and long. So I've been sequestered for the last year and a half, working on 5 major paintings, one for each of the Gospels, plus a cover piece, 89 letters for each of the chapters, specifically designed for each of the chapters.
And every page of this Bible has some of your art.
140 pages of hand illumination.
Contemporary art that goes thematically with what's being said in the text of the Bible on that particular page. It's just astounding to look at and so aesthetic, so beautiful.
Thank you.
Congratulations on that. And again, we'll put links on our website so our listeners can check it out.
Thank you.
Just before we have to wind up here today, I want to touch on the international arts movement because I know you feel strongly about this as well. Describe what it is and what you're hoping to accomplish.
Yeah, I began when I find myself isolated as an artist operating at a high level in the art world, and I realized whenever you feel isolated, you begin a movement, and that's just
There's
what
no one else to do it. I'll do it.
Yeah, and I just said, okay, yes, Lord, I don't want to have this Elijah complex of, being depressed and complaining all day. So I will pray towards peers that it doesn't have to be visual artists, but it could be any field operating at the highest levels and yet keeping their faith together. And I began to run into a few people, and so International Arts Movement began as an effort to make that into a movement, a catalytic movement.
Fellowship, and you have conferences. And
right. And we really do this as an arts organization in the public square. So we're not even explicitly Christian, although we let people know that we are operating from a biblical perspective. But we want to create a rehumanized dialogue that allows for, safety for people to ask deeper questions. And so we welcome people who artist types or even entrepreneurs. We have a lot of creative catalysts who are CEOs of companies, their teachers, their mothers are involved.
He's a catalyst in many ways. If you'd like to learn more, we've placed links to Makoto's website at firstpersoninterview.com. In addition to his website, there's also a link to the Four Holy Gospels, recently published by Crossway with Makoto's beautiful original artwork. And by the way, it's available as a digital download as well. Look us up online at firstpersoninterview.com. A very special welcome this week to our new listeners, with several new radio stations now airing First Person. Each week, a guest joins us to tell their story of faith in Christ and their call to serve the Lord. You'll find a calendar of upcoming guests as well as an audio archive of all past interviews on our website, firstpersoninterview.com. We have a number of very interesting people I want you to meet in upcoming editions of this program. Next week, you'll hear the testimony of a woman who chose to go ahead and have children, even though it meant blindness for her. We'll talk with Gail McWilliams next week. And in the weeks to come, you'll meet many servants of Christ. Now, with thanks to my friend and producer Joe Carlson, I'm Wayne Shepherd. We look forward to having you with us next week for First Person.